Before we dive into the magic of this story, I need to steal just 3 seconds of your time. If you're seeing this, you're part of something new. This is a brand new channel, and we are on a mission to hit 100 subscribers. That's our first big milestone. If you love stories that warm your heart, please hit that subscribe button right now. And if you could help us reach 50 likes on this video, that would be an absolute dream come true. You liking and subscribing is what tells YouTube this story is worth sharing. Okay, are you ready to get swept away? Let's dive in. Listen closely. Have you ever felt like the world was spinning too fast? Like you were standing still on a rushing train and everything was a blur? That's how 10-year-old Ilara felt every day. Her parents, bless their hearts, were brilliant and busy, always moving, always achieving, always chasing the next deadline or promotion. The coffee machine was the loudest thing in their kitchen, and the glow of computer screens often replaced the glow of evening lamps. Ilara loved them fiercely, but she often felt like a small ship in a vast, fast-moving ocean, sometimes longing for an anchor. This is where the story of Nana Rose and Grandpa Arthur begins, not in a faraway land, but just across the garden fence, in the little blue house with the perpetually open back door and the smell of cinnamon wafting out like a gentle invitation. Nana Rose was a woman carved from sunshine and soft laughter. Her hands, gnarled and spotted with age, told silent stories of kneading dough, planting seeds, and perhaps of holding 100 tiny hands over the years. Grandpa Arthur, a retired history professor, was a labyrinth of leather-bound books and pipe tobacco, whose voice was a low, comforting rumble, like distant thunder promising a cool rain. They were the slow part of the world, the beautiful, quiet counterpoint to Ilara's fast-paced life. Ilara's world, outside of their haven, had started to feel complicated. 5th grade introduced her to complex fractions and the confusing politics of the school playground, where friendships were made and broken with the speed of a text message. She found herself struggling with a sense of inadequacy. She couldn't grasp the math concepts easily, and her attempts to fit in felt exhausting. One Tuesday afternoon, after failing a pop quiz and enduring a silent lunch hour, where her best friend Maya chose to sit with the cooler girls, Ilara walked home, her backpack feeling like it was weighted with lead, and a growing, heavy lump of anxiety sitting right in the center of her chest. Instead of going into her silent, efficient house, she slipped through the gap in the rosebush hedge, the secret path, and into Nana Rose's sprawling, slightly chaotic garden. Nana Rose was kneeling in the dirt, wearing a wide-brimmed straw hat and gardening gloves that were more soil than canvas. She didn't look up immediately, but she humming a tune that sounded ancient and familiar. Ilara just dropped her bag by the well-worn wooden bench and stood there staring at the perfect pink petals of a nearby peony. "That one's called Sarah Bernhardt, Sweet Pea," Nana Rose said, her voice warm like the earth she was tending. She finally looked up, her blue eyes the exact same shade as the forget-me-nots blooming nearby, crinkling at the corners. "She's a diva, needs lots of attention, and sometimes you think she's done for, but she always comes back grander than before." Ilara felt the lump in her throat tighten. She couldn't speak, so she just shook her head. Nana Rose didn't press. She simply rose slowly, dusting her hands off. She led Ilara into the kitchen where the air was thick with the scent of rising bread. She didn't ask about school. She didn't mention the math quiz. She just pulled out a small, child-sized rolling pin and a bowl of flour. "We're making a mess today," Nana Rose declared, twinkling. "No rules, except for one. Flour must go everywhere." They spent the next 2 hours making apple crumble, the one Ilara loved. The recipe handwritten on a yellowed index card stained with decades of butter and sugar. As they worked, Nana Rose spoke not about fractions or friendship, but about resilience, comparing Ilara's current struggles to a stubborn knot in a piece of twine. "You don't fight a knot, darling," she explained, carefully demonstrating how to gently work the string loose. "You trace it, you understand its complexity, and you persuade it to unravel. It takes time, quiet hands, and patience." That night, Ilara didn't rush through her homework. She sat at the long dining table in the blue house, her notebook open, the scent of cinnamon and old paper surrounding her. Grandpa Arthur sat across from her, not correcting her, but reading a huge book on Roman history. When Ilara got stuck on a decimal problem, she didn't panic. She remembered the knot. "Grandpa," she whispered. He lowered the massive book, marking his place with a strip of leather. "Ah, the decimal dilemma," he said, nodding wisely. "Did you know that the word calculate comes from the Latin calculus, which means a small stone? For thousands of years, people did math by moving little stones around. Let's make the numbers visible, shall we?" Grandpa Arthur didn't teach her the textbook method. He took out a handful of smooth, river-polished pebbles from a ceramic bowl on the mantelpiece, stones he had collected on his travels. He showed her that a whole number was a full set of 10 stones. Decimals were the leftover, broken stones, the little pieces you needed to trade for a new whole. He turned abstract mathematics into a tactile game of trading and sorting. He didn't just teach the equation, he taught the story of the equation. Suddenly the concepts clicked into place. It wasn't about right or wrong answers, it was about the logic of the pebbles, the story of the numbers. Ilara finished her math, not with a sense of relief, but with a genuine spark of understanding. The lump of anxiety had shrunk to the size of a single smooth pebble, easily held and dismissed. This became their routine. Ilara's blue house became her escape hatch. When her parents were consumed by their jobs, the blue house offered presents. She learned more than just how to bake or do math there. She learned the importance of slow time. Grandpa Arthur had a telescope on the porch. On clear nights, while her parents were still typing emails, he would bundle Ilara up in a knitted blanket, made by Nana Rose, of course, and they would study the night sky. He didn't just point out constellations, he told her the myths, the tragic love stories, the epic battles, the tales of gods and heroes who were immortalized as flickering pinpricks of light. He taught her that the vastness of the universe should never make her feel small, but rather profoundly connected. "We are all made of stardust, Ilara," he would murmur, his breath misting in the cool night air. "You have cosmic material flowing through your veins. You are never insignificant." He would quiz her on history, but not with dates and names. He would ask, "If you were a common farmer in the French Revolution, what would you have done? If you had to choose a superpower, would it be flight or invisibility, and why?" He forced her to put herself into the lives of others, cultivating empathy and perspective, skills far more valuable than any rote memorization. He taught her that history isn't just about the past, it's about understanding the current human heart. Nana Rose, meanwhile, was the master of emotional healing. When Ilara was crushed because Maya was still excluding her, Nana Rose didn't minimize her pain. She simply pulled out a massive, slightly dusty box from the attic. Inside were hundreds of spools of thread in every color imaginable. "The tapestry of life, sweet pea," Nana Rose said, letting Ilara sift through the threads. "Sometimes someone pulls a thread and it leaves a hole. It hurts. You can't put the original thread back, but you can choose a new one. Look at this thread, deep indigo. It's the color of resilience. And this one, shimmering gold. That's the color of self-worth. When a hole appears, you don't fret over the missing color. You fill it with something better, something stronger, woven with the thread of your own choosing." They started a project, a large, haphazard piece of embroidery where Ilara would stitch her feelings, a dark, chaotic cluster of knots for her frustration, a long, smooth line of bright yellow for her hope, a strong, neat border in blue for her grandparents' love. The process of giving her emotions a tangible form, of using her hands to create beauty out of pain, was deeply therapeutic. Nana Rose never forced her to talk. She just stitched alongside her, quietly demonstrating the patience required to make a complex pattern. She taught Ilara that it's okay to have jagged edges, as long as you learn how to stitch them into a beautiful, complicated whole. She gifted Ilara the power of self-expression and emotional regulation without ever using those clinical words. The change in Ilara was subtle, but profound. She still found fractions challenging, but she no longer feared them. She still faced playground drama, but she carried the gold thread of self-worth in her pocket. She learned to pause, to breathe, to be present. One Friday night, Ilara's parents, exhausted from a grueling week, were slumped on the couch, staring blankly at the TV. They had forgotten about Ilara's school play the next day. A wave of the old anxiety started to creep up Ilara's spine, but then she caught herself. She remembered the knot, the pebbles, the stardust. She went to the kitchen and made 3 cups of Nana Rose's specialty chamomile tea, adding a dash of the secret ingredient, a tiny spoonful of honey from Grandpa Arthur's backyard hive. She took the mugs to the living room. "Mom, Dad," she said, her voice steady. "The world's spinning too fast. We need a quiet moment." Her parents looked at her, surprised, then at the mugs of steaming tea. Her mother took a sip and let out a long, slow sigh. "Oh, Ilara," she whispered. "You are right. This is exactly what I needed." They talked for the next hour, slowly and genuinely. Ilara didn't complain about their absence. She talked about the Roman emperor who kept his temper by counting to 10,000, a story Grandpa Arthur had shared. She talked about the way the earth holds the seeds patiently, a lesson from Nana Rose's garden. Her parents watched her, seeing not just their daughter, but a calm, grounded, deeply centered young woman. They realized the extraordinary, silent work that had been happening just across the hedge. The grandparents weren't just babysitters, they were cultural transmission centers, passing down not just stories and recipes, but the essential, unhurried wisdom of how to simply be a human being. The next day, Ilara's school play was a success. Her parents were there, beaming, their eyes shining with a newfound presence. But the real happy ending wasn't the applause. It was that evening. Instead of falling into their separate screens, the 4 of them, Ilara, her parents, Nana Rose, and Grandpa Arthur, sat on the blue house porch, wrapped in blankets, watching the stars. Grandpa Arthur pointed to the constellation Lyra. "That's Orpheus's harp," he murmured. "It sings a song of eternal love." Nana Rose reached over and took Ilara's mother's hand. Ilara's dad put his arm around Ilara. The fast world was still spinning out there, but in the circle of the blue house, under the silent, patient starlight, they were an anchor. Ilara knew that her grandparents had given her the greatest gift, the gift of knowing how to slow down, how to connect, and how to find the stardust in herself, ensuring that no matter how fast life moved, she would always know exactly where home was and exactly who she was meant to be. The gentle hand of a grandparent, she finally understood, doesn't just hold your hand for a while, it holds your heart for a lifetime, teaching you the rhythm of the world that truly matters. She was ready for anything, fortified by the endless, quiet love that smelled like cinnamon and old paper.